Gates was already in the office before most people had finished their first coffee. The top floor of the building looked like a rich person's Pinterest board. Glass, plants, expensive chairs, no one actually sat in. Somewhere below her, the rest of the company was buzzing about the same thing. That stupid headline. Ice Queen's CEO, does she even have a heart? It was on every business blog and gossip site. There was a photo of her leaving the building in the rain, looking stone-faced with sunglasses on at night. Someone had joked online. She probably just fired God for underperforming. Her assistant, Nora, jumped up as soon as Caroline stepped off the elevator. "Morning, Ms. Gates. The board wants you on a call at 9. PR's freaking out. HR says the survey results are ready and..." "Coffee first," Caroline said. "Then everyone can panic." She walked into her office, a huge corner space with a wall of windows and a view that screamed, "I'm the boss." Usually that view made her feel calm and at peace. Today it just reminded her how far she'd climbed and how far she had to fall. She sat down, set her coffee on the desk, and opened the file Nora had sent. Employee Satisfaction Survey Preliminary Results. The survey had been the board's big idea after a round of layoffs and a viral post from a former employee calling the company an inhumane business that chews people up. They wanted to look like they were listening. Anonymous survey. Honest feedback. Caroline skimmed the numbers. Most people said they were fine. Some weren't, pretty normal. Then she clicked into the written comments. A lot of them were basic. More flexible hours, better communication, less corporate nonsense. She was half zoning out when one long comment grabbed her. Title: "You wanted honesty." It started like this. "I know this is supposed to be anonymous, so here goes. Working here feels like dating someone way out of your league, who reminds you every day you're lucky they haven't dumped you yet." Caroline's eyes narrowed. She kept reading. "The pay is fine if you don't eat and never get sick. The benefits are good if you're a robot who doesn't need rest. The motto is we're a family until it's layoff day, then suddenly we regret to inform you." Her jaw tightened, but she kept going. And the CEO, well, Caroline Gates is very impressive in the way a glacier is impressive. Beautiful from far away, mostly made of ice, will crush you silently or not so silently if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Every all-hands video feels like being addressed by an AI that just learned about human emotions from a slide deck. The last line hit harder than she wanted to admit. If you actually want this place to feel human, maybe you could start by acting like you have a heart that runs on something other than unsweetened cold coffee. She sat back, staring at the screen. "Anonymous," the system said in the corner. Sure, anonymous. Someone in HR had messed up because with a couple clicks she could see the raw data behind the survey. Emails, departments, IDs, sloppy, but helpful. This comment came from marketing. Floor 12, analyst. 3 years at the company. Good performance reviews, a note about being a bit noisy and mouthy, which made sense now. Name, Violet Jones. Caroline said it out loud, testing it. Violet. Somehow it fit. The comment was direct, but it had a weird sort of humor that stuck with her. Unsweetened cold brew. She almost snorted, which annoyed her even more. Her inbox pinged. PR had sent a deck titled, "Humanizing Caroline Gates." Great, more magazine profiles. A staged day in the life video. Photos of her being relatable, laughing in a hoodie maybe, or holding a rescue dog. Fake, fake, fake. On top of that, the new client they were chasing, huge, queer-friendly, big on values, had said they wanted a more personal introduction to the CEO. They cared about ethics, real representation, and whether partners actually cared about people, not just money. Nora buzzed in. "Ms. Gates, PR wants to know if you've seen their plan. HR would like to go over the survey, and the client confirmed a visit for next week. They, asked if there was a way to show the human side of leadership more." Of course they did. Caroline looked back at Violet's comment. "You actually want this place to feel more human." Her mind started connecting things in that cold, fast way it always did. The board wanted her to be more human. The client wanted her to be personal. The internet wanted proof she wasn't a robot in heels. People believed stories, especially love stories. If she showed up to that meeting not as the scary single CEO who married her job, but as someone clearly in a real relationship, with another woman, no less, that would say a lot about who she was and what the company stood for. It would calm some of the queer community's doubts. It would give the board exactly the humanizing narrative they kept begging for. And somewhere downstairs, there was an employee who had no problem telling her to her face, well, to an anonymous box, that she came off like a glacier. "Get me a full file on Violet Jones," Caroline said. Nora hesitated. "Right away. Is there a specific reason?" "Yes," Caroline said, eyes still on the screen. "I think it's time I talk to someone who doesn't think I have a heart." She closed the survey window, but that line about cold brew stayed with her. If they wanted a story, she was about to give them one. And Violet Jones was about to get a promotion she would never see coming. Violet Jones was halfway through her first cup of terrible office coffee when her day was ruined. "Violet?" Her manager poked his head over the row of monitors like a nervous meerkat. "The top floor just called. They want you upstairs." Every head nearby popped up. Floor 12 was open plan, which basically meant no one had walls, so everyone could hear meaning gossip. "Upstairs, upstairs," her friend Maya whispered. "As in Dragon's Lair upstairs." Violet's stomach dipped. "Probably a mass firing and they want me to press send on the email," she muttered, trying to sound chill and not like her heart was climbing into her throat. Her manager winced. "They asked for you by name." Yeah, that sounded bad. She locked her screen, grabbed her phone, and tried to walk normally toward the elevator while at least 5 people pretended not to look. As soon as the doors closed, she let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. There was only one reason the top floor called you by name. The elevator ride felt like it took 10 years and half a second at the same time. When the doors opened onto the executive floor, the air felt different. Quieter, colder, like even the oxygen wore suits up here. Nora, the famous assistant, stood from her desk with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You must be Violet Jones." "That's what my ID says," Violet said before her brain could stop her. "Great. Excellent start." To her surprise, Nora's mouth twitched like she wanted to laugh. "Ms. Gates is ready for you, just straight through." The glass doors to Caroline's office looked like they cost more than Violet's entire student loan balance. Violet wiped her hands on her pants, told herself not to be weird, and stepped inside. Caroline Gates was at the window, back to the door, arms folded. The city stretched out behind her like a movie backdrop. Even from behind, Violet could see why people called her intimidating. Everything about her was sharp and controlled. For a second, Violet thought maybe she could just back out slowly and pretend she got lost on the way to the bathroom. Nope, too late. Caroline turned around. Violet had seen her 100 times on screens, company videos, news clips, interviews. Up close, she was worse and better. Worse because the cold energy was very much real. Better because there were details the camera never caught. The tiredness around her eyes, the tiny scar near her eyebrow, the way she took a second to actually look at Violet instead of past her. "Ms. Jones," Caroline said. Her voice was smooth and steady, the kind people listened to whether they wanted to or not. "Please, sit." Violet sat in a chair that was so soft, it made her feel like a kid in the principal's office. She tried to keep her hands from fidgeting. "Do you know why you're here?" Caroline asked. Violet went with honesty, because lying to this woman seemed pointless. "If this is about me stealing extra pens from the supply closet, I feel like the punishment is a little dramatic." One of Caroline's eyebrows lifted, barely. "It's not about pens." "Then I'm stumped," Violet said. "Unless we now have a strict no being 5 minutes late rule." Caroline didn't smile, but something in her expression shifted, like she was amused against her will. She walked around the desk, picked up a folder, and then instead of opening it, tapped a few keys on her keyboard. The wall screen behind her lit up. Violet's stomach dropped. The employee survey interface glowed on the screen. And in the middle of it, blown up big enough to be seen from space, was her comment. "You wanted honesty." Her mouth went dry. She stared at the words as if maybe, if she just focused hard enough, they'd rearrange themselves into something less of something that can ruin her career. Caroline turned the screen back to her, then looked at Violet. "Ring any bells?" she asked calmly. Violet considered her options. Panic, lie, panic, and lie, she swallowed. "That could be anyone," she tried. "A lot of people drink cold brew." Caroline just stared. Violet's defenses kicked in. "Okay, first of all, if that survey was actually anonymous, this feels like a weird choice." "It was supposed to be anonymous," Caroline said. "HR made a mistake. I saw the raw data before they locked it down." "Cool, so this is a horror movie," Violet muttered. "Good to know." Silence stretched. Caroline didn't look furious, which was confusing. If anything, she looked curious. Like Violet was a lab experiment she wasn't sure would explode. "You compared me to a glacier," Caroline said. "You noticed that, huh?" Violet said weakly. "And you said my heart runs on unsweetened cold brew." "In my defense," Violet said, because at this point, what did she have to lose? "I was tired, undercaffeinated, and under the impression I wouldn't be personally reading that to your face." Caroline's lips pressed together. For a second, Violet thought she might actually laugh. She didn't, but there was a tiny spark in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "You're not being fired," Caroline said. Violet blinked. "I'm not. If I fired everyone who criticized me, I'd have no one left to run the company," Caroline said. "And I've already laid off enough people this year." The bluntness of that hit Violet harder than the headline had. "Then, why am I here?" she asked. "Do you want me to apologize? Because I can maybe walk back the glacier part, but the rest." "I don't want an apology," Caroline said. "I want to offer you a promotion." Violet stared at her, then looked around like maybe there was a prank camera somewhere. "A promotion," she repeated. "Like more work for the same pay or a real one?" "A real one," Caroline said. "Substantial pay increase, new title. A chance to work directly with me." "Okay, now I know this is a horror movie," Violet said. "Is this the part where you reveal I'm actually dead and this is corporate hell?" Caroline ignored that. She walked back behind her desk, but didn't sit. "As you may have noticed, my public image is not great at the moment." "You mean the whole Ice Queen with no heart thing?" Violet said before she remembered you weren't supposed to say that out loud. "Yes," Caroline said dryly. "That." She picked up another folder and opened it. Inside was a printed article with that exact headline. On the next page, a summary of the new client they were chasing. Queer-friendly, ethics-driven, very much in the community. "The board wants to humanize me," Caroline said, making air quotes with a tiny flick of her fingers. "PR wants more interviews and staged photos. The new client wants proof we actually care about people, not just profit. Everyone wants a story." Violet frowned. "Okay." Caroline's gaze locked onto hers, steady and way too intense. "I think you can help with that," she said, "in a way PR can't." Violet's brain tried to keep up. "You want me to write something?" she guessed. "I mean, I can make you sound slightly less like a villain, maybe. Give you some jokes." Caroline shook her head. "Not exactly." She slid a few papers across the desk toward Violet. "There's a narrative that would solve several problems at once," Caroline said. "It would humanize me. It would reassure the client about our values. And ironically, it might even address some of the things you brought up in your survey response." Violet picked up the papers like they might bite. The top one said, "Agreement, personal public relationship arrangement." She blinked. "Read it again." "I'm sorry," she said slowly. "Is this?" "I want you to pose as my girlfriend," Caroline said, perfectly calm, like she'd asked Violet to move a meeting, not fake date her in front of the entire world. The words hit Violet's brain, bounced off a wall, and came back like they'd misheard themselves. "Your what?" Violet said. "Girlfriend," Caroline repeated. "Partner, whatever term you're comfortable with, publicly of course, there would be a contract. Boundaries, compensation." Violet stared at her, then down at the agreement, then back at her. "You want me to play pretend with you," she said, "so the internet thinks you have a heart. And so the client sees that I'm not just a faceless executive," Caroline said. "Yes." Violet laughed. She couldn't help it. It came out a little hysterical. "Wow, okay, this is a lot, you know that, right?" "Yes," Caroline said. "I'm aware it's unusual." "Unusual," Violet repeated. "This is Netflix special level unhinged." "Is that a no?" Caroline asked. Violet looked back at the papers. There in black and white, huge pay raise. Bonus big enough to maybe finally pay off some loans and start the graphic novel project she kept calling Someday. A title that would actually look impressive on a resume instead of screaming, stuck. Her brain started doing math all on its own. Months of fake dating, pretending, standing next to Caroline at events, letting people think they were a real couple. Letting herself be used as a PR bandage, in exchange for money that could actually change her life. This is wild, she said quietly. You know that, right? Probably, Caroline said. But you said yourself the culture here feels like dating someone who reminds you they can leave. I'm offering you a situation where you know exactly where you stand. That is such a weird way to sell this, Violet said. Do you do this a lot? Make insane offers to people who insult you in surveys? No, Caroline said. You're the first. For some reason, that made Violet's stomach flip. What happens if I say no? Violet asked. Nothing, Caroline said. You go back to your job on floor 12. HR never hears about your survey response. We will find another solution. And if I say yes? Violet asked. Caroline didn't look away. Then you get a promotion, a raise, a significant bonus, and a contract that gives you a lot more power than you have right now, she said. And for a few months, you and I pretend to be in love. Violet had signed the contract with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. Now she was wondering if she could legally sue herself for being stupid. Okay, Caroline said. Standing in the middle of her office like this was a normal Tuesday. If we're going to do this, we need to get our story straight. Our love story, Violet said, making a face. Right. Totally normal sentence. They were sitting on opposite ends of the couch in Caroline's office, a safe amount of space between them, like there was an invisible, do not cross, line down the middle. Caroline had a tablet with notes. Of course she did. First, she said, how we met. We technically met when you dragged me up here to bully me with my own survey, Violet said. Caroline gave her a look. Something more romantic than that, maybe. Fine. Violet thought about it. We could say we met in the lobby. I was late, spilled coffee. You made some comment about how clumsy I was. Somewhere between, I thought you were terrifying, and I thought you were reckless. Violet realized they were building something that almost sounded real. All right, Caroline said finally. We should practice. Violet blinked. Practice what exactly? Whatever people do in normal relationships, Caroline said, like she was talking about a software update. Holding hands, casual touches, things that won't look forced when we're in public. Violet's brain short-circuited for a second. Right, yeah, sure, casual. Caroline held her hand out, palm up. We might as well start here. Violet stared at it like it was a snake. Then she took a breath and put her hand in Caroline's. Warm, that was her first thought. Caroline's hand was warm and steady, fingers long, nails perfectly manicured. Violet's hand looked smaller, paint still faintly stuck near her cuticles from a weekend art project. Relax your hand, Caroline said softly. You're holding on like I'm about to drag you into the pits of hell. I mean you might, Violet said. I don't know your hobbies. Breathe, Caroline said. Violet did, letting her shoulders drop. Caroline's grip shifted, their fingers lacing together more naturally. For a moment, it felt nice, dangerous but nice. Okay, Caroline said. This will do. Her thumb moved, just once, brushing slowly over the side of Violet's hand. It was nothing, barely anything. But Violet's brain lit up like someone had plugged her into a socket. She looked up, startled. Caroline was already pulling her hand back, face carefully blank. Next, walking together. Oh, so we're just going to pretend that didn't feel weirdly intimate, Violet muttered. I'm pretending nothing, Caroline said. Stand up. They practiced walking side by side down the hallway outside the office, hands brushing, shoulders close. It was ridiculous. Violet kept cracking jokes. Caroline kept pretending she wasn't amused. Once, Violet stumbled slightly when her heel caught on the rug. Caroline's hand went straight to her waist to steady her, fingers pressing into her side like it was instinct, not just for show. They froze. They were too close. close enough for Violet to see the tiny flecks of lighter brown in Caroline's eyes, the curl of a flyaway hair by her ear, the soft line of her mouth. "You good?" Caroline asked quietly. "Yep," Violet said, voice a little too high. "Totally great. Gravity who? Never heard of her." Caroline's hand slid away. "We'll work on that." "On gravity," Violet said. "Good luck." The first real test came faster than Violet wanted. "The gala is tomorrow night," Caroline said later, flipping through her calendar like she was talking about picking up dry cleaning. "It's our first public appearance together. The client's representative will be there. Several board members. Press." "Cool," Violet said. "No pressure at all, love that for us." "You'll need something appropriate to wear," Caroline said. "We can have wardrobe send options." "Wardrobe," Violet repeated. "You say that like I'm in a movie." Caroline gave her a look. "Do you own a dress that isn't black, wrinkled, or from a Halloween costume?" Violet opened her mouth, then closed it. "I feel a little attacked." Caroline's mouth did that almost a smile thing. "I'll have Nora arrange a fitting." The next day, Violet found herself in a side room on the top floor, standing on a little platform while strangers pinned a dress on her like she was some kind of Barbie. It was a deep jewel tone that made her skin look warmer, her eyes brighter. She barely recognized herself in the mirror. "You dress up well," Nora said with a grin, leaning against the door. "I feel like I'm cosplaying a rich person," Violet said. "Welcome to the club," Nora replied. When Caroline walked in, for a second, she didn't say anything. Her eyes just moved slowly from Violet's hair to the line of the dress to her shoes. "Well," Violet asked, suddenly weirdly nervous. Caroline cleared her throat. "It works," she said. "You look fine." "Fine," Violet repeated. "Wow, don't oversell it, Cara." Caroline shot her a sharp look at the nickname, but there was color in her cheeks now. "You'll do," she said, and walked off to get ready herself. At the gala, everything was noise and lights and money. Crystal chandeliers, waiters with trays, people in gowns and suits laughing too loudly. Violet clutched a small clutch bag like it was a life jacket. "Remember," Caroline murmured at her side as cameras flashed near the entrance. "We arrived together. We've been dating for months. You're not my employee tonight." "That's a lot of pretending," Violet whispered back. "Just so you know, I'm very good at panicking and tripping over things." "I've noticed," Caroline said. A photographer called their names. Caroline stepped closer, her hand finding the small of Violet's back like it was the most natural thing in the world. Heat spread under Violet's skin. "Smile," Caroline said under her breath. They turned toward the cameras. Violet forced a smile, but when she glanced up, Caroline wasn't looking at the photographers. She was looking at Violet, expression softer than Violet had ever seen. It only lasted a second. Then Caroline shifted, her public face sliding back on. But Violet had seen it. Inside, they mingled. Violet stumbled through small talk with people who probably spent more on their shoes than she did on rent. Caroline stayed at her side, always aware of where Violet was, guiding her gently through the crowd with a hand on her back, at her elbow, at her waist. At one point, Violet drifted into conversation with a woman from another department who was actually funny. They laughed, trading stories about office chaos. Out of the corner of her eye, Violet noticed Caroline watching. Her jaw was tight, her eyes a little narrow. A minute later, Caroline slid up beside Violet with a polite, too smooth smile. "Sorry to steal her," she said to the other woman. "I need a moment with my girlfriend." Violet's brain did a double take at the word "my." Caroline's hand settled on Violet's hip as she led her away. The touch looked casual. It didn't feel casual. "You were glaring," Violet hissed once they were out of earshot. "I was not glaring," Caroline said. "You looked like you wanted to fire her and she doesn't even work for you," Violet said. Caroline ignored that. "The client's representative just arrived. We should greet them together." "Right," Violet said. "Perfect couple mode, got it." As they approached the client's rep, Caroline's fingers found Violet's again, lacing their hands together. The gesture was smooth, practiced, but the way her thumb brushed over Violet's skin, that wasn't in the contract. By the time a month had passed, Violet's life could be split into two categories. Times she was pretending to date her boss. Times she was thinking about pretending to date her boss. It was exhausting. Officially, nothing had changed. She still had a badge, a desk, and a pile of marketing tasks. Unofficially, her calendar was full of casual lunch with Kara, client might be there. Walk through office holding hands like it's normal. Smile like you're not dying inside. On good days, it almost felt fun. On bad days, it felt like slowly handing little pieces of her heart to a contract. The closeness caught up on her. At first, sitting in Caroline's office felt like being in a museum. Look, don't touch, don't breathe too loud. Now, Violet's mug lived on a corner of the CEO's desk, and she'd caught herself doodling in Caroline's meeting notes when calls ran long. "Please don't draw tiny knives stabbing my bullet points," Caroline said one afternoon, glancing at the page. "It's thematic," Violet said. "You're talking about cutting budgets." Caroline gave her a look, but there was more tired fondness than annoyance these days. They'd gotten used to each other's rhythms. Caroline's 2 p.m. crash where she switched from ruthless executive to quiet, staring at her coffee mode. Violet's habit of talking with her hands when she got passionate about an idea. The way Caroline always walked on the side of the hallway closest to other people, like a shield, when they were on. The little touches got more frequent. In meetings with the client's team, Caroline would rest her hand on Violet's knee under the table, fingers tapping lightly when someone said something crazy or funny. At first, Violet thought it was all for show, but there were times no one was looking, and the hand stayed. One night, they were in Caroline's office way too late, eating takeout from plastic containers. Violet was ranting about a campaign idea someone had pitched that was basically, rainbow wash everything and call it allyship. "This is exactly what people drag companies for," she said, waving a fork. "It's just, we slapped a rainbow on it. Please don't ask about our board." Caroline watched her, elbow on the desk, chin resting lightly on her hand. "What?" Violet asked, suddenly self-conscious. "You're very expressive," Caroline said. "That's a nice way to say loud," Violet said. "It's a nice way to say you care," Caroline replied. Violet felt heat creep up her neck. She looked away, poking at her food. "Someone has to." There was a pause, softer. "I do care, you know," Caroline said. "I'm just not as expressive about it." "You don't say," Violet said, then winced. "Sorry." "It's fine," Caroline said. "You're not entirely wrong." Violet risked a glance up. Caroline looked tired, not just physically. Tired in that bone-deep way that came from carrying too much for too long. "How old were you when you decided feelings were illegal?" Violet asked lightly. Caroline huffed a tiny laugh. "Old enough to know they weren't going to pay the bills." There it was again, that little crack in the armor. Violet wanted to ask more. She didn't. Instead, she changed the subject, and later, lying in bed, she hated that she was starting to want to know everything. The jealousy moments got clearer too. One Friday, a new hire from HR, cute, flirty, very into tattoos, plopped down at Violet's lunch table. "I've been meaning to say I love your hair," she said. "And your earrings. And your whole vibe, actually." Violet blinked. "Oh, thanks." They chatted, it was easy. The new hire laughed at Violet's jokes, leaned in when she talked. At some point, she asked, "So, are you seeing anyone?" Violet's brain screamed yes and no at the same time. She went with, "It's complicated," and hoped that was vague enough to cover technically under contract with my boss. A shadow fell over the table. "Jones," Caroline said, smooth as ice. "I need you in a meeting now." Violet blinked up at her. "I'm on my lunch break." "It's important," Caroline said. Her eyes flicked briefly to the new hire, then back. The new hire smiled politely, clearly intimidated. "Of course, we can talk later, Violet." They walked to the elevator in silence. "Incredibly subtle," Violet said when the doors closed. 10 out of 10. Caroline didn't look at her. "We do have a meeting." "You just made that up," Violet said. "You didn't even say what it's about." "I don't have to explain every decision to you," Caroline said, a little meaner than usual. Violet stared at her. Then the penny dropped. "You're jealous." Caroline's jaw clenched. "Don't be ridiculous. You dragged me away from a 30-minute salad just so I wouldn't flirt with HR, Violet said. "That's textbook jealous behavior, Kara." Caroline's eyes snapped to her at the nickname. "This is about optics," she said. You're supposed to be in a committed relationship with me, remember? Violet's laugh came out more bitter than she meant. Right, the relationship that lives in a PDF. Something flickered in Caroline's expression. Hurt, maybe, but she looked away before Violet could be sure. If you have a problem with the arrangement, we can revisit the terms, Caroline said quietly. Violet folded her arms, suddenly tired. Forget it. Just tell me what fake meeting I'm walking into. The business trip was supposed to be simple. 2 days in another city, 1 big client workshop, 1 networking dinner. In and out. Of course, the hotel lost one of their room reservations. I'm so sorry, the front desk clerk said, not sounding sorry at all. We're fully booked. We only have the 1 suite. Caroline's jaw worked. We requested 2 rooms. I completely understand, the clerk said. But there's just the one. It has a king bed and a pull-out sofa. Violet could practically see the PR team's fingerprints on this. Relax, she said under her breath. You've survived worse than a pull-out couch. Caroline exhaled slowly. Fine, we'll take it. The suite was nice. Too nice. Living area, big windows, giant bed that Violet tried very hard not to look at. You take the bed, Caroline said immediately. I'll take the sofa. Violet snorted. Yeah, okay. I'm not taking the bed and letting my billionaire boss sleep on a lumpy couch. I like to annoy you, not get murdered. I'm not a billionaire, Caroline said automatically. You give off billionaire energy, Violet said. We can split the bed. We've shared a couch before. This is just horizontal. Caroline gave her a long look. You're sure? Yeah, Violet said, more confidently than she felt. It's big. We'll stay on our own sides. Put a pillow wall in the middle or something. Later that night, after the workshop and dinner, they stumbled back to the room, both drunk from wine and exhaustion. Violet kicked off her shoes with a groan. If one more person says synergy at me, I'm changing my name and moving to a farm. You'd last 2 days on a farm, Caroline said, undoing her hair. Rude. I give it 3, Violet said. They changed in awkward turns, Violet in the bathroom, Caroline in the bedroom. When Violet came out in an oversized t-shirt and shorts, Caroline was sitting on the bed in a tank top and soft-looking sleep pants, hair down around her shoulders. Violet froze for half a second. She'd seen Caroline polished. She'd seen her cold. She'd never seen her like this, soft, tired, hair a little messy, face bare. Stop staring, Caroline said lightly, without looking up from her phone. I'm not, Violet said too fast. They settled into the bed, as far apart as they could get while still technically sharing it. There was a ridiculous stack of pillows between them. In the dark, the room hummed with quiet hotel air conditioning. That's dangerously close to a compliment, she said, trying to keep it light. Don't get used to it, Caroline said, but it was gentle. The air between them felt charged. Violet's fingers curled in the sheet. Kara, she whispered, the nickname slipping out before she could stop it. Caroline went very still. Yes, she said. Violet didn't know what she wanted to say. Something like, this doesn't feel fake anymore. Something like, I don't know where we stand. Instead, she shifted, pushing one of the pillows down just enough to see a faint outline of Caroline's face in the dark. They were closer than she'd thought. Close enough to see the shape of Caroline's mouth, the way her eyes were on Violet and not the ceiling. For a moment, neither of them moved. Violet's body leaned in before her brain caught up, closing a bit of the distance. Caroline's breath hitched. It would be so easy. Just a few more centimeters, just one move. Violet froze. It's in the contract, she blurted, hating herself the second the words left her mouth. We shouldn't, not when we're like this. She could practically feel Caroline pulling back inside herself. Of course, Caroline said, voice suddenly neutral again. You're right, we should sleep. Violet turned back onto her back, staring at the ceiling again, heart pounding. She de-used the contract as a shield, and the temperature in the room dropped. On her side of the bed, very quietly, Caroline whispered, Good night, Violet. Violet shut her eyes. Good night, Kara, she said. Neither of them slept well. The morning of the big pitch started almost stupidly perfect. Violet's hair cooperated. Her shirt didn't wrinkle in the car. Caroline actually smiled at her in the elevator, a small, real one that made Violet's brain short-circuit for a second. You ready? Caroline asked. As I'll ever be to sell my soul for capitalism, Violet said. With ethics, kind of. Caroline huffed a quiet laugh. Stay next to me. If anyone asks you something, you don't have to pretend to know everything. Just be honest. That's literally what got me into this mess, Violet said. But sure. The pitch was in the big boardroom. The one with the ridiculous view and the glass table that made everyone's shoes visible. The queer-friendly client's team sat opposite the board and execs. They were direct, relaxed, and very obviously paying attention to everything. Caroline opened with the expected stuff: numbers, plans, strategy. But then she stepped aside. I'd like Violet to speak to this part, she said. Half the room blinked. Violet tried not to. She stood, heart hammering, and talked. Not about how perfect everything was, but about what needed to change. How the company had messed up. How performative allyship wasn't good enough. How they were working on real policies and not just rainbow logos. She didn't roast the company, but she didn't sugarcoat it either. A couple of board members shifted uncomfortably. The client's CEO looked impressed. When she finished, Caroline looked at her like she'd just done magic. Thank you, Caroline said, and it sounded like it wasn't just for show. They wrapped up, handshakes, smiles. The client's CEO pulled them aside on the way out. You two are very convincing, she said, professionally and personally. Caroline's fingers found Violet's again. We're trying our best, she said. On the way back to Caroline's office, Violet's chest felt light for the first time in a while. Hey, she said. We did good in there. Yes, Caroline said. You were incredible. Oh my God, Violet said. Did you just give me a full compliment? No sarcasm. Don't get used to it, Caroline said, but she was smiling. For a moment, everything felt weirdly possible. The crash came an hour later. Violet was at her old floor 12 desk, answering emails and trying not to scroll social media, when her entire phone lit up. Link, oh my God. Link, is this for real? Link, Violet. Someone dropped a screenshot into the group chat. It took a second for her brain to process what she was seeing. A gossip site headline. Leaked. Contract shows CEO's girlfriend is a fake relationship stunt. Under it, a blurred-in PDF. Her PDF. The contract she'd signed with enough visible to make it obvious what it was. Terms, dates, phrases like arrangement, mutually beneficial, public relationship. Her stomach dropped straight through the floor. Violet, Maya whispered from the next desk, eyes huge. Is that real? Violet's hands shook. Her vision tunneled. I have to go, she said, standing so fast her chair rolled back. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like a nightmare this time. By the time the doors opened, people were already walking fast, whispering into phones. PR looked pale. Nora looked 10 times more stressed than usual. Is she? Violet started. In her office, Nora said. They're calling an emergency meeting. Violet didn't wait. She pushed the door open without knocking. Caroline stood by the window again, phone in hand, face tighter than Violet had ever seen. On the big screen, the same headline glared back at them. More now, too. Tweets, hot takes, people calling Violet a sellout, calling Caroline manipulative, calling the whole thing disgusting. Tell me this is fake, Violet said, voice shaking. Tell me this is some kind of deep fake or... It's real, Caroline said quietly. Someone leaked the contract draft. Violet felt like the world went upside down. How? Who had it? Legal, PR, the board, Caroline said. We're trying to find out. Her words sounded far away. Violet stared at the screen. People were already dissecting every photo from the gala, every little touch, the way Caroline looked at her. It all looked like staged theater now, like a trick. That contract had my name blacked out at least, Violet said. Right. Caroline didn't answer fast enough. Violet looked at her. Right. Most of it, Caroline said. But some screenshots. Violet's phone buzzed. Her mom, her cousin, old friends. A text from a number she didn't recognize, sellout. She swallowed hard. You said HR wouldn't know about the survey, she said. You said I'd have protection. You said. I meant it, Caroline said. I didn't approve this, I would never. The door opened again. A couple of board members stepped in without waiting. Their faces were tight with anger. Caroline, we need to talk. Now, one of them said. Then his eyes landed on Violet. His mouth thinned. "She should not be here." "She has every right to be here," Caroline said. "We can discuss that later," he snapped. "Right now, we have a crisis. The client is calling, the press is calling. We need a statement. Something that makes it clear the company wasn't abusing anyone or exploiting a community." Violet almost laughed at the phrase, "wasn't exploiting." The other board member folded her arms. "We'll say the relationship is real and the contract was just a legal formality," she said quickly. "We distance the company from any PR stunt framing. Put it on her if we have to. Say she exaggerated for clout." She jerked her head toward Violet like she was a problem to be moved, not a person standing right there. Violet felt her chest go hot and cold all at once. "Excuse me," she said. "I exaggerated." "We're in damage control," the woman said. "Let the lawyers sort out the rest. The important thing is that the company looks." "No," Violet said. "No way." The room buzzed, phones still going off. People talking over each other about strategy, optics, spin. Through all of it, Violet was watching one person. Caroline. Caroline, who was staring at the table, jaw clenched, silent. "Say something," Violet said, her voice coming out too loud. "Tell them that I'm not. Tell them this wasn't just me. Tell them it was your idea. That I'm not some random gold digger who scammed you." All eyes shifted to Caroline. For a second, just 1 second, Violet saw it, the war on Caroline's face. The instinct to protect the company. The fear. The part of her that wanted to protect Violet too. Her mouth opened then closed. That single second of silence felt like someone took a knife to Violet's heart. "Caroline," she said, smaller this time. The board member jumped in, filling the gap. "We need to move fast. We can't tie the whole company's reputation to one low-level employee's choices." Low-level employee. Violet felt something in her crack. She laughed. It sounded wrong even to her own ears. "You know what's funny?" she said. "I knew this was stupid. I knew signing that contract was stupid. But I did it anyway because I thought maybe, just maybe, it would give me something real at the end. A way out. A chance." She looked at Caroline. "And I thought you wouldn't throw me under the bus," she said. "That's on me. That's my bad." "Violet," Caroline started finally. "No," Violet said, backing up. Her hands were shaking. "You had your chance." She looked at the board members. "You want a statement?" she said. "Here's one for free. You can't fix a broken company with a fake. You can't rent a girlfriend and call it okay." "Ms. Jones, I strongly advise you to watch your tone," one of them began. "Fire me," Violet said. "Or don't, I quit either way." Silence slammed into the room. Caroline took a step forward, eyes wide now. "Violet, wait. We can fix this. I can fix this." Violet shook her head, throat tight. "No, you can't," she said. "Because the whole time I thought I was pretending to be your girlfriend, I was actually falling for you. And clearly, I was the only one who thought any of it was real." Her voice broke on the last word. She hated that she was crying in front of these people. She swiped at her cheeks, turned, and walked out before anyone could see more. Nora stood outside, looking like she wanted to say something. She didn't get the chance. Violet just kept moving, down the hall, into the elevator, away. By the time she reached the lobby, her phone was buzzing nonstop. Friends, coworkers, unknown numbers, social media exploding. She turned it off. Outside, the sky was too bright. People walked past her like nothing had changed. For them, nothing had. For her, everything had. She took a breath that hurt and started walking, not sure where she was going, just knowing she had to get as far away from Caroline Gates and that contract as possible. Violet didn't remember the exact moment she decided she was done. She remembered packing up her desk in a blur, her plastic plant, her pens, the stupid stress ball shaped like the company logo. She remembered Maya hugging her so tight it hurt and saying, "Text me when you're okay, or even if you're not." She remembered not crying in the elevator. She waited until she was in her tiny apartment, surrounded by boxes she'd never bothered to unpack fully, before she let herself fall apart. Her phone blew up all day. Friends asking if she was okay. Strangers calling her names. A couple of people deeming to say they thought the company was awful and she deserved better. Her mom leaving a voicemail that started with, "Are you in trouble?" and ended with, "I love you, okay?" She turned the phone off and left it face down on the counter. For a few days, she was on autopilot. She slept too late, ate cereal for dinner, opened the document for her graphic novel idea, and stared at it until the screen blurred. Every time she tried to write, her brain filled with images that weren't supposed to hurt this much. Caroline's hand on hers. Caroline's laugh when Violet said something dumb. Caroline's eyes in the dark, inches from her own. The worst part was knowing she'd done it to herself. She walked into that contract with her eyes open and still managed to trip headfirst into real feelings. "That's on you, Jones," she told herself in the bathroom mirror. "No one told you to fall in love with your fake girlfriend." Her reflection didn't look convinced. The internet storm didn't die down right away, but it changed shape. After Caroline's team put out some bland, legal-approved statement, people started digging deeper. Ex-employees talked about burnout and pressure. Some praised real changes that had started under her leadership. Others blamed her for everything. Violet tried not to look, but some things still slipped through. Screenshots in group chats, articles from friends. One headline stuck with her: "Ice Queen, fake love, real damage." She didn't click it. 3 days after she'd walked out, someone knocked on her apartment door. Violet froze on the couch, blanket around her shoulders, bowl of popcorn in her lap. Nobody knocked on her door without texting first. Her brain went straight to worst-case scenarios. Paparazzi, a board member, her mom somehow. "Who is it?" she called, not moving. Silence for a second, then, "It's me." Violet's heart stopped. She knew that voice. She'd know it in a crowded stadium, through a wall, half asleep. She hated that. She stood up slowly, set the bowl down, and walked to the door like it might explode. When she opened it, Caroline Gates was standing there in jeans and a simple sweater, hair pulled back, no makeup, no driver, no assistant, no polished CEO armor, just Caroline, looking nervous. "That's a new look," Violet said, because sarcasm was muscle memory. "What happened? Did you lose a bet?" Caroline exhaled, a tiny puff of air that could almost have been a laugh. "Hi," she said. "Can I come in?" Violet should have said no. Instead, she stepped back. Caroline walked inside like she'd never been in a normal apartment before. She glanced at the stack of dishes in the sink, the half-finished sketch pads on the coffee table, the pile of laundry on a chair. Not judgmental, just taking it in. "This is nice," she said. "It's small," Violet said. "But the landlord only ignores my emails half the time, so it's home." Silence settled between them, not the comfortable kind, the heavy, awkward kind. "Why are you here, Caroline?" "I know," she said. "That silence is on me. I've spent years learning how to shut up every feeling I have if it might get in the way of protecting the company. And in that moment, I treated you like some object instead of a person." Violet looked away, her throat dry. "The worst part is," Caroline said softly, "you accused me of not having a heart, and the moment I tried to use it, I realized I didn't know how without hurting someone." Violet let out a shaky breath. "Why are you talking like this?" she asked. "You never talk like this." "Because I'm tired of hiding behind everything," Caroline said. "I did something yesterday I never thought I'd do." Violet frowned. "What?" "I went live," Caroline said. "No PR script, no legal edits, just me talking." Violet blinked. "You what?" Caroline looked almost embarrassed. "I told the world the truth. That the relationship started as a PR move. That it was wrong. That I used you as a shield. That I let fear dictate my choices. That I care about you more than I care about the board's comfort." Violet stared at her. "You did that on camera." "Yes," Caroline said. "It wasn't pretty. I almost threw up when the light went on. But I meant every word." Violet swallowed. Something shaky and warm moved through her chest, but she forced herself to stay grounded. "And what did you tell them about us?" she asked. Caroline's shoulders dropped a little. "I told them that somewhere between the first fake handhold and the last real argument," she said, "I stopped being able to tell the difference between acting and wanting." Violet's heart squeezed. She hated how much she needed specifics. "Okay," she said quietly. "Then tell me what was real." Caroline looked at her like she'd been waiting for that question. "The first time we held hands in my office," Caroline said. "That started fake. I was thinking about angles and cameras and how it would look." Her eyes softened. "But the way my thumb kept moving over your skin," she said, "that was real." I told myself it was just nerves. It was. Violet's breath caught. "The gala," Caroline continued. "The cheek kiss on the red carpet, that was for the cameras. The way I kept looking at you afterward and forgetting to look at anyone else. Very real. The board noticed. They hated it." Despite herself, Violet almost smiled. "The lunch with the new hire," Caroline said. "Dragging you away like a jealous teenager. I tried to tell myself it was about optics. It was. I was jealous. I hated that she made you laugh that easily." "That was obvious," Violet muttered. Caroline's mouth twitched. "The hotel room," she said more quietly. "The almost kiss. I told myself stopping was the right thing, that it was about respecting the contract. The truth is, I panicked, because I knew if I kissed you, it would stop being pretend forever. And I didn't know how to be that honest and still be the person I thought I had to be." Violet's eyes burned. "You always had a choice," Violet said. "You picked the company over me." "Yes," Caroline said, "until I didn't." She took a slow breath. "The board's furious with me right now," she said. "The client is still deciding what to do. The lawyers are having heart attacks, and I have never felt more sure about a decision in my life." "What decision?" Violet asked. "That I would rather lose all of this than keep it by pretending you didn't matter," Caroline said. The words hung in the air between them, raw and heavy. Violet looked at her, really looked at her. For once, Caroline didn't look like a glacier. She looked like a person who knew exactly how badly she'd messed up and was still standing here, heart in her hands, hoping it was enough. "You hurt me," Violet said. "I know," Caroline said. Her voice shook. "I am so sorry, Violet. Not in a PR way, not in a let's fix the story way. In a I would give up every headline and contract to go back to that meeting and choose you way." Violet's chest ached. She wanted to stay mad. She also wanted to step forward and put her head on Caroline's shoulder and forget all of this. "You can't fix everything with an apology," Violet said. "I'm not trying to fix everything," Caroline said. "I'm trying to give you the truth I should have given you months ago and a choice I should have given you from the start." She took a small breath. "If you want nothing to do with me ever again," she said, "I'll respect that. I'll sign whatever you want, give whatever references you need, support you from very far away. If you want to work with us again, it'll be on your terms with real power. And if you want to try again with me, not as Ms. Gates with a contract." She stopped, shook her head a little. "There's no clause for that," she finished quietly. "Just whatever you decide." Silence stretched. Violet looked at her bare face, her tired eyes, the way her shoulders were just slightly hunched like she was bracing for a hit. "This would be a lot simpler if I didn't love you," Violet said, almost to herself. Caroline's breath caught. Her hand twitched like she had to stop herself from reaching out. "You do?" she asked, voice small in a way Violet had never heard. "Yeah," Violet said. "Against my will, very rude of you, actually." A shaky laugh broke out of Caroline, like she didn't know how to hold it in. "I've been in love with you for a while," she admitted. "I just hid it behind NDAs and meetups." "That is the most on-brand thing you've ever said," Violet said. They both laughed then, and some of the tension disappeared. Violet stepped closer. Not all the way, just enough that she could see herself reflected in Caroline's eyes. "No contract?" she asked. "No contract," Caroline said. "No PR strategy," Violet pressed. "No PR strategy," Caroline said. "If anything, my PR team would like me to shut up and go back to being scary." Violet smiled, small but real. "Then you can do one thing for me," she said. "Anything," Caroline said. "Ask me again," Violet said. "But for real this time." Caroline swallowed, took one more small step forward. "Violet Jones," she said, voice soft and steady, "would you like to be my girlfriend? Not for the cameras, not for the board, just because I'm completely in love with you and I don't want to go home to anyone else." Violet's eyes filled. She let out a breath she felt like she'd been holding since the day she signed that contract. "Yeah," she said, "I would." She closed the last bit of space between them. This time, when their hands found each other, there was no script. When Caroline's thumb brushed over her skin, it wasn't a tell. It was just a habit she didn't bother to hide. Violet slid her hand up to Caroline's neck, felt the quick, nervous flutter of her pulse, and kissed her. No cameras, no board, no contract. Just the two of them in a messy apartment, finally doing the one thing they'd both wanted and both been too scared to admit. When they pulled back, Caroline rested her forehead against Violet's. "I'm still scared," Caroline whispered. "Good," Violet said. "Me too means it's real." A few months later, the internet had moved on to other scandals. The client had decided to stay, impressed by actual changes and not just statements. The company felt a little different, still corporate, still flawed, but a bit more human. Violet stood near the back of a company town hall, watching Caroline on stage. She was talking about transparency, about listening, about building something that didn't chew people up. There were concrete things behind the words now. New policies, new programs, people Violet knew personally who'd been part of shaping them. When the Q&A wrapped up, someone near the front raised a hand and called out, "We liked your speech, but how's your girlfriend?" A ripple of laughter went through the room. Caroline scanned the crowd until her gaze landed on Violet. She didn't hesitate. "She's doing great," Caroline said, smiling in a way that made it obvious who she was looking at. "And I'm very lucky she hasn't dumped me yet." The room laughed again. Violet rolled her eyes, but she was smiling too. Later, as people filtered out, Caroline found her by the door. "Hey," Violet said. "Nice speech. A little less robotic than usual." "I'd help," Caroline said. From a very blunt consultant. "Sounds like she's underpaid," Violet said. Caroline leaned in and pressed a quick kiss to her temple. "No cameras, just habit." "Dinner tonight?" Caroline asked. "Actual date, no networking, no gala." "I hear there's a place that serves fries in tiny metal buckets." "You really know how to romance a girl," Violet said. "But yeah, I'm in." They walked out together, fingers lacing automatically. For once, Violet didn't wonder if anyone was watching. She knew who she was going home with. And this time, no one needed a contract to prove it. The thing about being in a real relationship with Caroline Gates was that Violet kept forgetting she was Caroline Gates. Most mornings, she was just Kara. Half asleep, hair a mess, stealing sips of Violet's coffee and pretending she didn't like it sweeter now. The same woman who once signed her paycheck now argued over who got the good pillow and which side of the bed was legally hers. They still had their rhythms, but they'd changed. Caroline's calendar now had blocks labeled things like dinner with V. No meetings, seriously. Therapy. The last one made Violet stupidly proud. On weeknights, Caroline would show up at Violet's apartment, or Violet at Caroline's more polished, magazine-ready place, with takeout and a tired smile. "How was being terrifying today?" Violet would ask, taking her coat. "I only made 3 grown men almost piss their pants," Caroline would say. A slow day. They'd eat on the couch, legs tangled, laptop closed for once. Violet would rant about some ridiculous pitch or a bad ad she saw. Caroline would listen, eyebrow raised, asking questions that proved she actually cared. "What do you want to make?" Caroline asked one night when Violet was complaining about yet another campaign. "Honestly," Violet said, "stories where people like us aren't an object or perfect. Just messy, normal, stupid-in-love people who get to be who they want to be." Caroline looked at her for a long moment. "Then let's make that," she said. "At work if you want, or somewhere else. With me backing you if you'll let me." Violet stared at her. "You're offering to bankroll my lesbian disaster cinematic universe." "Within reason," Caroline said. "But yes." Violet leaned over and kissed her. "I really did accidentally fall in love with a rich woman," she muttered. "My ancestors are probably happier to know that." The first time they went to a company event as a real couple, it felt different. There were still cameras, still people watching, but Violet didn't feel like she was playing a part anymore. Her hand found Caroline's because she wanted to, not because anyone told her to. Someone asked them, "So how did you two get together anyway?" They traded a look. "You wouldn't believe us if we told you," Violet said. "Contractually complicated," Caroline added. They laughed, and the person laughed with them, assuming it was a joke. Later, when they finally got home, they kicked their shoes off in the entryway and collapsed onto the couch. "You did good," Violet said, nudging Caroline's shoulder. "Not even one robot answer all night." I had a good script, Caroline said. You. Cheesy, Violet said. I like it. Caroline shifted so Violet was half in her lap, fingers playing with a strand of hair. You know, Caroline said quietly, sometimes I still worry you're going to wake up and realize you could have picked someone a lot less complicated. Violet snorted. Please, normal people are boring. And none of them would have given me a fake dating contract and a health insurance policy. Caroline laughed, head tipping back. Violet watched her, heart squeezing at how open she looked now. Less sharp edges, more soft corners. Still herself, but more of herself than she used to show. I didn't fall in love with Ms. Gates, terrifying CEO, Violet said. I fell in love with the woman who eats cereal out of a mixing bowl when she's stressed and cries at dog commercials. I do not cry at dog commercials, Caroline protested. You literally teared up when the golden retriever found his way home, Violet said. That was editing manipulation, Caroline said, and the dog was very determined. Violet grinned. See, completely defenseless. She leaned up and kissed her, slow and sure, the kind of kiss that didn't have to prove anything to anyone. Caroline's hand slid to her waist, pulling her closer. The familiar heat unfurled between them, easy now, not laced with guilt or confusion. Stay over, Caroline murmured against her mouth. Violet smiled. Pretty sure you're stuck with me at this point. They stumbled down the hallway together, bumping shoulders and laughing as they went. Caroline caught herself on the doorframe, pulling Violet with her, and they paused there for a moment, kissing like they had all the time in the world. The bedroom door drifted halfway shut. The rest of the night was theirs alone. They still fought, of course, about work, about boundaries, about Caroline trying to answer emails at midnight and Violet threatening to delete her inbox, about Violet taking on too much at once and forgetting to eat. But the difference now was simple. They fought toward each other, not away. On the bad days, when a headline twisted something Caroline said or an ex-employee dragged the company again, she'd come home looking like the glacier people still thought she was. Violet would meet her at the door, take one look, and just open her arms. Caroline would fold into her like it was the most natural thing in the world. I've got you, Violet would murmur into her hair. Both of us know you're not a villain. Let them write their think pieces. And what are we? Caroline would ask, voice muffled against her shoulder. Depends, Violet would say. Today, two idiots who somehow made a PR stunt turn into an actual love story. Caroline would laugh, the tension easing out of her piece by piece. And every time, Violet would think, this is what she wanted from the start. Not the money, not the title, not the drama, just this. Real, messy, warm. The CEO no one thought had a heart, and the mouthy analyst who accidentally proved she did. Sharing takeout, bad TV, soft kisses, and a life neither of them had planned for but both of them chose, over and over again.